Stop for a moment and think about the last time you handled a penny. Did you look at it? Really look? Or did you toss it into a jar? Drop it into a vending machine? Or brush it off a counter without a second thought? You are not alone every single day. Millions of Americans ignore, discard, or casually spend coins that could be worth more than a new car, a down payment on a house, or even a child's college education. It sounds like exaggeration. It is not. There exists a small group of Lincoln wheat pennies coins so ordinary in appearance that most people would call them ugly, dirty, or damaged, that have triggered real auction shock behind closed doors. These are not the flawless, shiny coins you see in museum displays. They're the dark, worn, strangely colored pennies that blend perfectly into old junk drawers, rusted toolboxes, forgotten purses, and dusty kitchen canisters. And that is precisely what makes them dangerous. They hide too well. They look too ordinary. And while the average person sees trash, serious collectors see something else entirely. A silent fortune hiding in plain sight. This article is about 3 specific pennies. Each one has a story rooted in American history. Each one has survived against overwhelming odds. And each one has the power to completely change the way you look at small change forever. But a warning before we begin. After reading this, you will never handle a penny the same way again. You will find yourself checking dates, tilting coins toward the light, studying mint marks. And that is exactly the point, because the next hidden treasure you find might already be sitting in your hand. Chapter 1. The untouched D. Steel cent, the wartime ghost that refuses to stay hidden. The year that changed American coinage forever. To understand why the 1943D wheat penny has become one of the most emotionally charged coins in American collecting, you have to travel back to one of the most intense years in United States history. The year was 1943. World War II was raging. American forces were fighting across Europe and the Pacific. Factories had been converted to wartime production. Rationing was a way of life. And every ounce of copper, every single pound was needed for the war effort. Copper was not a luxury. It was a strategic material. It went into shell casings, communication wire, tanks, ships, aircraft, and ammunition. The United States Mint, facing enormous pressure from the government and military, made a decision that shocked the nation. The familiar bronze penny would disappear, replaced by something entirely different. Overnight, the Mint switched to zinc-coated steel. Imagine the confusion. Americans woke up to find strange, silver-colored coins in their change. They looked fake. Some people thought they were dimes. Others accused the government of trying to pass off worthless metal. Children were fascinated. Adults were suspicious. And almost nobody realized that these silvery pennies would one day become treasures worth fighting over. But not all steel pennies are created equal. Among them, one stands above the rest. The 1943D struck at the Denver Mint, marked with a tiny D beneath the date. That small letter changes everything. Why the Denver Mint version became legendary. During wartime, speed mattered more than perfection. The Denver Mint, like its counterparts in Philadelphia and San Francisco, operated around the clock. Dies wore out quickly. Quality control was pushed to its absolute limits. Coins were struck rapidly, often with inconsistent pressure, and sent straight into circulation without the careful inspection that collectors would demand decades later. That pressure created coins with unique personalities. Some 1943D steel cents show weak strikes. Others have uneven zinc coating. Many develop strange surface textures that modern collectors study obsessively. But the real problem, the thing that makes surviving examples so incredibly rare today, is what happened after these coins left the mint. Steel rusts, zinc corrodes, and the American public, by and large, hated these coins. People did not save them. They did not treasure them. They spent them as quickly as possible, often in harsh conditions. Pennies rattled through rain-soaked streets, sat in humid pockets, rolled under car seats, and were thrown into jars where moisture slowly attacked their fragile surfaces. Children played with them. Adults cleaned them with harsh chemicals. Entire collections were thrown away because people thought the coins were ugly and worthless. That is exactly why a genuine untouched D steel cent in fine condition with original, untouched surfaces feels almost unreal today. It survived something that most of its brothers did not. What the coin actually looks like and why looks deceive. Hold an authentic 1943D steel cent in your hand, and the first thing you notice is the color. It is not the warm brown of a normal penny. It is a cool silvery gray like a ghost of a coin. Under certain light, it can appear almost blue. Under other light, it may look dark and forbidding. This is not damage. This is the natural appearance of zinc-coated steel. Now look at the front, what collectors call the obverse. Abraham Lincoln's portrait faces right, calm, and determined. Above his head, the word liberty arcs gracefully to the left. Along the top rim, "In God We Trust" curves in bold letters. The date, 1943, sits clearly to the right of Lincoln's shoulder. And directly beneath that date, if you look closely, is the tiny D mint mark. That mint mark is tiny. It is easy to miss. And it is everything. Serious collectors do not glance at the mint mark. They study it. They look for signs of authentic striking. They examine the space around the letter for natural darkness or original texture. A weak or partially filled mint mark can actually increase interest because it tells a story about wartime production pressure. A perfectly sharp mint mark can indicate a coin that was struck early, before the die began to wear. Now flip the coin over to the reverse. Here you see the design that gave wheat pennies their name. 2 wheat stalks, framing the outer edges, curving upward along the rim. Across the center, in bold letters, are the words 1 cent. Beneath that, United States of America. Along the top edge, the Latin phrase e pluribus unum, out of many one. It is a beautiful design, but collectors do not see beauty here. They see survival. They inspect every line of the wheat stalks, looking for wear patterns that match honest circulation. They study the spacing of the letters. They examine the rim for signs of original mint luster. They look for tiny spots of natural darkness or discoloration, because those spots help prove the coin has never been cleaned or artificially altered. The physical reality of a wartime penny. The 1943D steel cent is physically different from any other Lincoln penny. It weighs approximately 2.7 grams lighter than a normal copper penny, which weighs about 3.11 grams. Its diameter is 19.05 millimeters. Its thickness is roughly 1.55 millimeters, and it is magnetic. That last detail is critical. A genuine steel cent will snap to a magnet. A fake will not. But be careful, counterfeiters have become sophisticated over the years. Some have coated steel blanks with copper to mimic the rare 1943 copper cents. Others have altered dates on other steel cents to create false rarities. This is why experienced collectors and professional grading services are essential when dealing with this coin. The steel core of this penny is its greatest weakness. The zinc coating that gives it its silver appearance is thin, thinner than most people realize. Over time, circulation wears away the coating, exposing the steel beneath. Once exposed, rust and corrosion attack aggressively. A D that looks perfect at first glance may hide microscopic rust spots that will destroy its value. And then there's the problem of cleaning. Never, under any circumstances, clean a 1943D steel cent. This warning cannot be repeated enough. Most people, when they find an old, dark or dirty penny, instinctively want to polish it. They use baking soda, toothpaste, metal polish, even vinegar. Every single one of these methods destroys collector value. Why? Because serious collectors do not want shiny coins. They want authentic coins. They want to see the natural aging, the honest darkness, the subtle evidence that a coin survived decades without human interference. A naturally toned 1943D with soft gray surfaces, darker antique patches. An original circulation character creates an emotional reaction that a polished, artificially brightened example cannot match. This is the single most misunderstood fact in all of coin collecting. The dangerous psychology of collector demand. Here is where things become truly fascinating and potentially life-changing. Most people chase perfection. They want the shiniest, cleanest, most flawless example they can find. But advanced collectors? They chase authenticity. They want coins that feel untouched by modern interference. They want evidence of age, circulation, and honest survival. This means that an old, dirty, even slightly rusty 1943D with original surfaces can trigger stronger emotional bidding than a cleaned coin that appears brighter and newer. The moment a steel cent loses its original skin, the moment someone polishes away that dark, antique patina series, collectors notice instantly. And once collector trust disappears, value can collapse like a house of cards. But when a genuine, authenticated untouched with fine condition and original surfaces appears at auction, the room changes. Conversations slow down, bidders become quieter. Experienced buyers begin studying every image obsessively because they understand how rare true survivors have become. Some collectors wait years, literally years, to find the right circulated untouched steel cent. They pass over hundreds of cleaned, damaged, or artificially toned examples. And when the right one finally appears, with verified authenticity and strong original preservation, the bidding becomes aggressive, sometimes shockingly aggressive. Today, certain authenticated 1943D wheat pennies in fine condition have reached auction values around the 1 yen. Think about that. A single penny. Something that people still throw into jars without thinking. Something that has been spent accidentally on candy, gum, and bus fare for over 80 years. That is the definition of hidden wealth. How to protect yourself and your discovery? If you believe you have found a 1943D steel cent, do not spend it. Do not clean it. Do not rub it. Do not try to test its magnetism by dragging it across a countertop. Instead, follow these steps carefully. First, hold the coin only by its edges. The oils from your fingers can damage surfaces over time. Second, place it in a protective holder, a non-PVC flip, or a small cardboard coin holder. Keep it away from moisture completely. Steel rusts. Even humidity can cause damage. Third, do not attempt any home restoration. Do not soak it in anything. Do not polish it. Do not wipe it. The surfaces you see are exactly what collectors want. Fourth, consult a professional grading service such as PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC Numismatic Guarantee Company. These organizations have experts who can authenticate your coin, evaluate its condition, and seal it in a protective holder that certifies its originality. Fifth, if the coin is authenticated as genuine and original, consider professional auction services for selling. The market for these coins is specialized, and experienced auction houses can connect you with serious collectors who understand the value of original surfaces, the emotional heart of the steel penny. Beyond the money, and the money is real, life-changing, undeniable, there is something deeper at play here. The 1943D steel cent connects directly to wartime America. Every scratch, every dark spot, every worn edge feels tied to one of the most intense periods in United States history. These pennies circulated while soldiers fought overseas. They passed through the hands of factory workers running on little sleep, producing tanks and planes around the clock. They sat in the pockets of families living under rationing, waiting for letters from the front. They were touched by children who didn't understand why their pennies suddenly looked strange. Collectors are not just buying metal. They are buying history. They are buying survival. They are buying a tangible piece of a world that no longer exists. And that emotional connection, it drives aggressive auction behavior. It turns what should be a simple transaction into something almost spiritual. It explains why certain coins sell for prices that seem irrational to outsiders. The 1943D steel cent is not just a penny. It is a survivor. And in the world of serious collecting, survivors are everything. Chapter 2. The untouched wheat penny, the post-war sleeper that fooled America for decades. The year 1949 carried a strange, almost restless energy across America. Soldiers had come home, but the country was still adjusting emotionally. Industries were transforming from wartime production to consumer goods. Families were rebuilding their lives in new suburbs, while the first whispers of Cold War tension began creeping into headlines and dinner table conversations. Money moved fast during this period. Small coins especially became essential in daily commerce. Pennies rattled through diners, bus stations, grocery stores, cigarette machines, corner shops, and soda fountains nonstop. The Denver Mint, like its sister facilities, was producing Lincoln wheat pennies under constant pressure to meet circulation demand. Millions upon millions of coins left the mint each month, heading straight into the pockets of an energetic, spending happy American public. But here is the critical detail that nobody realized at the time. Most of those pennies would not survive. Not because they were destroyed intentionally, but because they were worn, cleaned, corroded, or simply neglected. Americans in 1949 had no reason to save pennies. They were everywhere. They were ordinary. They were, in the minds of most people, practically worthless. That is exactly why surviving circulated examples of the untouched wheat penny feels so emotionally powerful to collectors today. They are accidental survivors. Coins that somehow avoided the cleaning cloth, the harsh chemical, the damp basement, and the landfill. Coins that passed through real hands during one of America's biggest post-war transitions and emerged with their original surfaces intact. Why original surfaces matter more than shine. Here's something that confuses almost everyone new to coin collecting. Shiny does not always mean valuable. In fact, for many coins, original dark surfaces are far more desirable than artificial brightness. The 1949D wheat penny is a perfect example of this paradox. Most people who find one in an old jar or drawer glance at it for half a second and move on. It looks old. It looks dirty. It might even look damaged. But serious collectors, they freeze when they see certain dates. They understand that circulated coins with authentic surfaces tell a story that modern, polished coins cannot fake. It is history. Every softened edge is evidence of honest circulation. Every dark patch of toning is proof that the coin survived naturally, without human interference. That emotional authenticity is exactly what drives collector obsession. And the 1949D has another factor working in its favor. It is scarce. Not impossibly rare, but scarce enough that finding an example with strong, original surfaces has become genuinely difficult. The Denver Mint produced a respectable number of these pennies, but the survival rate for attractive, uncleaned, problem-free examples is much lower than most people assume. A close look at the design. Examine the front of a 1949D wheat penny and you begin to understand why. Collectors become so protective of these coins. Abraham Lincoln's portrait faces right, calm, but determined. It is the same portrait that had already become iconic by 1949, a design that Americans recognized instantly, even without looking closely. Above Lincoln's head, the word Liberty arcs to the left. Along the top rim, In God We Trust curves in bold letters. The date, 1949, sits on the right side beside Lincoln's chest. And beneath that date, tiny but unmistakable, is the demint mark. That little letter is everything. Collectors study mint marks obsessively because different mints produced coins with different characteristics. The Denver Mint, in particular, is known for certain strike variations that specialists have documented over decades. Even the condition of the mint mark itself matters, whether it is sharp or weak, centered or slightly off, surrounded by natural darkness or unnaturally bright. Now turn the coin over. The reverse displays the legendary wheat design that created one of the most beloved coin series in American history. Two wheat stalks rise along the outer edges, framing the words 1 cent boldly across the center. Beneath that sits United States of America. Along the top rim curves E pluribus unum. It is a design that millions of Americans once handled daily without appreciation. Today, collectors stare at these reverse details with intense focus. They inspect the wheat lines for wear patterns. They examine the rim for evidence of original mint luster. They study the lettering to see if it remains strong or has faded naturally through honest circulation. Some collectors even examine tiny color changes inside the recessed areas of the design. Those subtle patterns, often invisible to the casual observer, can reveal whether a coin has been improperly cleaned or chemically altered. A coin with original surfaces will show natural color variations that cannot be artificially recreated. The physical composition of a post-war penny. Unlike the wartime steel cents, the 1949D returned to the classic bronze composition that collectors emotionally connect with. It was struck using approximately 95% copper, combined with small amounts of tin and zinc. This metal mixture gives the coin its rich, warm personality when preserved naturally. The coin weighs approximately 3.11 grams. Its diameter is 19.05 millimeters. Its thickness is roughly 1.55 millimeters. And its edge is smooth and solid, no reading. No special markings, just the satisfying heft of honest copper. The copper surfaces have had decades to age, to oxidize, to develop depth and character. Others develop subtle reddish undertones that peek through the darker surfaces. A few rare survivors even show traces of original mint red in protected areas. These color variations are not flaws. They are features. They are exactly what serious collectors hunt for.